First up tonight, with the COVID-19 pandemic still raging across the globe, the 12th BRICS Summit was held on November 17th via virtual conference. Under Russia's rotating presidency this year, leaders from the 5 member states opened dialogue regarding cooperation on pandemic control, economic recovery, and global stability during this very challenging time. What are some of the obstacles standing in the way of BRICS countries securing common goals? To answer these questions, I'm joined by Professor Vinicius de Freita from Sao Paulo, visiting professor of international law and international relations at China Foreign Affairs University. From New Delhi, Professor Madhav Nalapat at Manipal University, Department of Geopolitics and International Relations, and Zhao, Research Fellow of Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. This year's priority on the BRICS agenda is promoting multilateral collaborations in combating the pandemic, as the majority of the BRICS countries are deeply mired in this global health crisis and its subsequent economic recession. Professor de Freita, I want to come to you first. We know the BRICS nations are home to more than 40% of the world's population and account for 50% of the world's economic growth. What do member countries at this point most urgently need to cooperate on?
Well, I think that the COVID-19 crisis in the whole world has been, too much ideology behind, and really what we need to find out is the ways to cooperate, particularly on the vaccine. I think that Brazil and China have been working on the corona vaccine, and I think it's a good improvement, and that's, I think, what we really need at this moment, because there was a lot of blaming and a lot of bashing and a lot of criticism regarding the situation around the world, and I think this hasn't really contributed to the effort that we need to build in order to seek greater cooperation in the countries. So I'm glad to see that in this, this BRICS Summit, one of the important things was that the word cooperation was highly emphasized, and also the issue of multilateralism. We are living in a complicated age. Many countries that supported the whole framework of building the international order somehow are withdrawing, and I think it's not a good sign. So I see with a sign of relief the situation that has happened with the BRICS Summit, and I think it's great.
Professor Nalapat, I want to come to you now. Like Brazil, India has taken a heavy blow, a heavy hit from the pandemic. We really are, as individual countries, facing a dual mission, pandemic control and economic recovery. What could the BRICS mechanism offer India at this point?
Well, I'd like to say that it offers a very good consultative mechanism in some very, very important countries of the world. And I would like to also point out that if you go back to the AIDS pandemic, ultimately it was resolved by therapeutics, low-cost therapeutics. And today India is producing about 90% of the low-cost therapeutic cocktails that have made the AIDS virus no longer a terror. While we are, of course, focusing on vaccines a lot, the reality is that another way out would be to ensure that you have therapeutic cocktails which can, in a sense, ensure that this is not a killer disease. And if that happens, then you can bring a semblance of normal life. Otherwise, so long as the virus is there, normal life is going to be difficult with lockdowns and restrictions. You cannot, have a healthy economy if you have a virus which cannot be controlled. But in my view, therapeutics is the answer and not just the vaccine.
Let's take a look at what the Chinese president said on the occasion. Xi Jinping delivered a speech at the BRICS Summit on Tuesday. He once again called for international solidarity and cooperation in combating COVID-19. Let's first take a listen.
Around the world, COVID-19 is posing a grave threat to people's life and well-being. The global public health system is facing a severe test. We must keep people's welfare close to heart and pursue the vision of a community with a shared future for mankind. Through concrete actions, we will contribute our share to making the world a better place for everyone.
Mr. Zhao, let's talk a little bit about China's position. We know Chinese pharmaceutical companies are currently working in Russia and Brazil on phase 3 trials of Chinese vaccines. And as the virus is still raging around the world, to what extent can such cooperation among BRICS member countries ensure the accessibility and affordability of vaccines among BRICS member countries and beyond?
Well, it is very important at this point, as you have pointed out, that those countries in BRICS are large developing countries with large population. Now, there are millions infected, hundreds of thousands are dead in India, in Brazil, and also in South Africa. In China, there used to be this pandemic going through the country. Now it's pretty much under control. However, everybody is waiting for the vaccine. But we have the problem, even if the vaccine is coming out before the end of the year. Because as you know, this is in the, Chinese vaccines and also I think the Russian ones are under the stage 2 and stage 3 trial. There are a number of candidates. However, even if we have the vaccines, we need to resolve the problem of production, of transportation and distribution. So the vaccine is very important, but more importantly is vaccinification. It's very important to deliver this to the people, not only to the rich countries, but also to the poor developing countries and to satisfy people's needs. That's why China is joining the COVAX international cooperation, and that's why, on the other hand, more than vaccines, China is trying to help countries with more debt accumulated with financial problems as well. As you know, BRIC countries has the New Development Bank that is providing financial assistance to countries, including India and Brazil. So I think at this moment, BRICS mechanism is functioning, and it's very well. It's very good for those countries that are participating.
I do want to stay on this topic and also bring in Professor Victor Gao, Chair Professor at SooChow University, joining us today from Zhongshan in Guangdong Province. Professor Gao, we're talking about the affordability and accessibility of vaccines, particularly Chinese vaccines. Now, on October 10th, China officially joined the COVAX initiative to participate in global vaccine development. In President Xi's speech, he also made a commitment to the other 4 BRICS nations in regards of equitable vaccine distribution within the BRICS mechanism. That being said, some observers have found fault in China wanting to help. They claimed that vaccine cooperation is a way for China to leverage so-called soft power and diminish the negative views in other areas. Is that fair?
No, I don't think that's fair. I think whether it is soft power or not, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is to save lives and prevent more infections in the BRIC countries and also in the world at large. President Xi Jinping already declared that once the vaccine developed in China has passed through all the tests, it will be declared international public good. And this is really very good news for mankind as a whole, for many, many countries in the world. So let's really call a spade a spade. Let's focus on saving lives and preventing more infections in this very lethal pandemic.
Professor Freita, I want to get your thoughts also on these claims, because it really is not about China at this point, is it? Just think about what others would say if China didn't offer to make its vaccine available and accessible to other countries, especially developing countries. What would happen? What would other people in countries say if China hoarded all of the vaccines once developed successfully?
I think that what President Xi Jinping said, that we are all on the same boat, we're all on the same boat, is a clear sign to the world that we need to find a way to fight COVID. And it's better if we are together. And I really like this process that President Xi Jinping also announced of having the vaccine as an international public good, as it was mentioned before. I think that really clearly gives us a sign to the world that when it's a time of a pandemic, when the world is suffering, the fact that we are not looking for the vaccine only for profit, we're looking for a solution that is going to help everyone, is essential in this moment. So I think it is a message of solidarity, a message of, compassion that I really like to emphasize, and I think it is important that the whole world understands that this is a moment we have to recover the economy, but solidarity is essential for us to create a better environment for the future generations. So it's a great opportunity for cooperation in that sense. And I completely agree. It helps in China's image, and it also helps the world to find ways of working together better.
Professor Nalapat, I want to talk about economic recovery. Now, each country's condition varies, of course, but under the BRICS mechanism, in April, the BRICS New Development Bank established the Emergency Assistance Facility with $10 billion disbursement to provide crisis-related assistance to BRICS member nations for anti-COVID or economic recovery measures. What does India need at this point of the pandemic to boost economic recovery going forward?
Well, there's no doubt that additional capital, whether in the form of low-cost loans or investment, would certainly be welcome. And I'd like to say that President Xi is absolutely right. The virus does not need a visa to go from country to country, and the virus, frankly, cannot make out if somebody is from Russia or China or India or Brazil or South Africa or any other country. So in case China or Russia can develop a successful vaccine, it would be great for the world. And if India can do that, India, I think, is very close to having its own vaccine. That also would be good for the world. It's not only production of the vaccine, it's also producing it cheaply. And this, again, I go back to my point. What is needed is what happened in the case of HIV/AIDS. Now you have very cheap cocktails of drugs that are keeping HIV/AIDS from being a killer. Similarly, you need to have reduced costs of vaccines. And I think in this connection, India is, if I may say so, quite prominent in the fact that a substantial number of low-cost vaccines are produced in India.
Professor Gao, we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to end with you. How do we make better use of the BRICS mechanism and the New Development Bank to help individual member countries with their economic recovery post-pandemic?
Well, first of all, I think it's very lucky that the 5 BRICS countries have the BRICS Development Bank framework, because this really enabled the 5 BRICS countries to closely cooperate with each other in making a common effort to fight against this COVID-19 pandemic. Secondly, all the 5 BRICS countries need to fight off the pandemic, but also we need to size up the situation and restart and redevelop our economy. Both are very important, but as for the moment, putting science above everything else is of crucial importance. Then any premature restarting of the economy may actually backfire, as we have witnessed in the United States and in quite a few European countries. Therefore, for the BRICS countries, sharing information, sharing expertise, sharing vaccine whenever it is made available will be crucially important. And then later, when the COVID-19 pandemic is calming down, all the 5 member states need to figure out what's the best way to help each other, to cooperate each other, to restart our economies.
Keep talking, keep working each other, and keep cooperating.